I love cultural history. I love it. I soak up details and facts and information about the history of different cultures anytime I can. I listen to podcasts, I read blogs, watch documentaries, and when I meet someone from a different culture, especially if they are a seasoned person, if you know what I mean, I ask questions. Or if I meet an older person from my own culture, I ask questions. I think that's why I loved volunteering in a nursing home when I was in college. I love hearing stories and details about people's lives, especially when it comes to their culture. Now, this is especially true when it comes to food. Every culture, every family has that recipe or that dish or that particular food that has been passed down for generations. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's been a movement recently of younger generations wanting to make sure that the trades and tricks and techniques and such from different cultures are being carried on or passed down. There's even a whole YouTube channel now of Italian grandmas sharing their signature pasta recipes because their grandchildren don't want the techniques to get lost. Now, today's guest is not only carrying on the traditions of her family and her culture, but she's doing it in such a way that is impacting the next generation to come in a way you'd never imagine. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show's all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Now, each week I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, a nonprofit director, a community leader, or just an amazing person who is trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. My guest this week is Cecilia Polanco, the founder of the local Durham food truck, So Good Pupusas, and its nonprofit partner, Pupusas for Education. Now, if you're not local to the Raleigh-Durham area, you are probably wondering, why would I bring on a local food truck owner onto the show? Well, Cecilia's story of how she went from being a university scholar to the owner of a food truck with a mission is absolutely incredible. I told her this during our interview that I want to be her when I grow up. And I'm older than her, so I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. So without further ado, on to my chat with Cecilia. Hey, Cecilia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here in the studio. As I always share on the show, I love to have people live in the studio because most of the time I'm just talking to myself or talking to somebody through a computer. So it's always nice to have people here with me in the studio.
Yeah, it's really cool to be here in the studio with you.
I know. So I am so excited to talk with you for so many reasons. We have she's your family. She's my friend, Cindy. So I know Cindy through Burn Boot Camp, and she raves about you and talks about you and So Good Pupusas all the time. And I was just like, I need to have her on the show because what you are doing is incredible. So before we get too far into it, I want to have you do what I have all my guests do, and that's give us the Cecilia 101. So tell us your story and where you are from and how you got to where you are today and starting So Good Pupusas.
Okay, that story, I'm going to tell the brief version.
You can tell as long as you want or as short as you want. It's up to you.
But first, I'll give a shout out to Cindy and to my family who are my biggest supporters.
I love it.
They come out to the truck, they buy pupusas, they show out, and it's because of them that I think we've been as successful as we have been. So
that's awesome.
Shout out to them.
Yes.
And for me, well, I am part of this special family in Durham. So many of us have moved here and grown up here, and we have this strong network together. And I think that's really the secret sauce to my story.
Yeah.
Because it's taken a village to get me to where I am.
Did you grow up here in Durham?
Yeah. I was born in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
A few of my cousins in my generation were born in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
My family lived there for, I think, about 10 years before moving here.
Yeah.
Right around my first birthday.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Durham.
Yeah, this is home. Mm-hmm. This is home. That's awesome.
Yep. So I grew up here, and I went through the public school system here. And my senior year, I was at Northern High School. I was applying for college, for scholarships. One of my older sisters and Cindy were kind of the first people in our family to go to college, and they both went to Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Hey, go Heels.
Yes, exactly.
Go Heels.
That was my dream school since I was a little girl, to go to Carolina. Like my big sister, my big cousin, and just like seeing them on campus, I was like, that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that Cindy was a counselor for Project Uplift, which is like a campus visiting program. And so I was part of that program, and I got to see so many students of color, including my own cousin, thriving at Carolina and having a great time. And that I wanted to go there so bad.
Yeah.
And so my senior year, I was applying to Carolina, applying for a lot of scholarships, and I was really blessed to be a recipient of the Morehead-Cain Scholarship.
That's amazing.
To UNC. So I had a full ride to Carolina.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, so that really changed everything for me. I didn't wait to see all my other applications. I was like, I'm going to UNC. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, just dream come true.
For people that don't know, the Morehead-Cain Scholarship is like one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious scholarship at Carolina. One of my friends from church is in charge of the Morehead-Cain program now. And so, I mean, and she's kind of explained to me like how, grueling it is.
What's her name?
Carmen Kent.
Carmen Kent. I love
You
Carmen.
know Carmen?
Carmen, she
Oh
was
my
one
gosh.
of my
See,
advisors.
small world.
Yeah, she was one of my advisors while I was at Carolina, and she was great. I think that they're now part of my village. You know, people who looked after me and supported me, and Carmen's amazing.
She's incredible.
Yay.
She's incredible. Yeah, but I mean, really, I don't know how else to emphasize like how prestigious this is. So that's incredible. So you get a full ride to Carolina, and what did life look like for you after that?
Before I went to Carolina, I decided to take a gap year.
Oh, yeah.
Which was also kind of out there because it was also on a scholarship. I was part of the first cohort of Global Gap Year Fellows at UNC through the Campus Y. And I'd never heard of a gap year, didn't know anyone who had taken a gap year, but I was really taking a chance on an opportunity. So I credit my gap year for a lot of what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my experience at Carolina. So I came back from my gap year, went to Carolina, and my first year there was pretty tough. I stayed pretty much to myself and focused on academics. But then after that, I wanted to get more involved. And so my sophomore year is really when I started to talk about what I wanted to do with my college experience, opportunity, the resources there, other than pursuing my degree.
Right.
Right. Because everyone in our 4 years, we graduate with our degree. But what else did we do while we were there? Mm-hmm. And Carolina's big on that. Like, what's your heel print? How do you embody the Carolina way? Right. And so for me at Carolina, I started to hear a different narrative about myself. And so I was taking Spanish classes with Professor Julia Cardona Mack. Mm-hmm. And she just rocked my world. I can't put it any other way. I took Spanish for Heritage Speakers, and that was my first Spanish class with her. And I'd already placed out of Spanish, but I wanted to get a little bit better at it, have a little more practice. And she just understood me. She was like, I know that you kind of know how to read. You can probably talk it fine, but maybe you don't know where accents go. And I was like, how does she know? And so I just kept coming back to her classes. And it was also the first time I had a Latina at the head of the classroom. And so it was huge for me to see myself represented in that way. Right. And so I just loved being in that space with her. So I took 3 or 4 more classes that I didn't even need just because I wanted to be around her. And she really encouraged my ideas in a way that I hadn't been encouraged before. Like, so talking about wanting to start a food truck. Yeah. So that started as like a joke with my sisters and my family. Like, oh, mom's pupusas are so good. I bet we could sell them. We could make a lot of money. Yeah.
Wait, before you get to that, I want to ask this question because you said something that just really stuck out to me. You said, I began to hear a different narrative about myself.
Yes.
Tell me what that means in context of what were you struggling with before this time and how did it start to shift for you?
Right. So I think that growing up in Durham in the public school system, especially in high school, is when I started to get more feedback, more messaging about myself. And it wasn't always blatant messaging. It was just maybe conversations with maybe certain teachers, certain administrators, or a counselor where I maybe wanted to take, one instance was I wanted to take 3 AP classes my junior year because I really wanted to be a junior marshal. And in order to be, they're the top 12 in the school, you pretty much have to take 3 APs. And so I wanted to do that. I went in to talk to my counselor and, they told me, oh, well, that's really challenging. Like, are you sure you want to do that? It's going to be really hard. Maybe you'd do better, or you'd be stronger if you took some honors classes and things like that. And I really hadn't even thought about doing anything other than taking 3 AP classes.
Right.
And so I went home and I thought about it, and I told my sisters what happened, and they were outraged. They were like, how dare they say that to you? We're going to go to the school. We're going to talk to them. And I was freaking out. I didn't want any conflict. I was like, no, it's okay. I'll go back. I'll handle it tomorrow. Yeah. And it was one of the first instances when I really felt that messaging towards me. And just even instances about, Northern being talked about as a low performing school, and kind of, I wasn't the cream of the crop at Northern. I would say that I was up there, but I wasn't in the top of our class. I didn't have straight A's. I always had a B in something. One year I had a B in PE, and I was so mad. But that's just part of it, and so I didn't really consider myself like the best of the best. And so applying for the Morehead-Cain was me going out on a limb.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that my school nominated me for it. I think I self-nominated. I didn't know about opportunities like governor's school. I think I applied to Duke. And I think I would have, or even just a couple of other schools that I applied to. I think my chances of getting in would have been stronger had I known about and taken SAT subject tests.
Right.
I didn't even know what those were, and I was like about to graduate.
Yeah.
And so I think that is all just a few examples of the messaging I would receive about myself, about even statistics about how Latinas tend to drop out of school, tend to become pregnant, or just other things like that. And so the message I wasn't receiving about myself was, yeah, you can definitely go to college. Where do you want to go? Like, let's nominate you for prestigious merit scholarships. Like, this is what you should be thinking about.
There weren't adults in positions of power that were empowering you.
There were some
to push you.
There were some, but there were also some that weren't.
Yeah.
And so it was a conflicting message where it's like, this is going to be a really hard path for you, and others I would like, you should go for it. Yeah. And so I think that a lot of students are experiencing that, and if there aren't more voices that are supportive, that aren't overwhelmingly like combating those negative messages, that we can fall into believing the negative ones instead of the positive ones. Right. And so I think that's why I credit my successes and just where I am. I believe that it's because of every person who believed in me before I did, everyone who invested in me, everyone who took the time to mentor me. Yeah. And so I think that it took all of those. It was almost like Inception. Like, the more I was told, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, I was like, okay, maybe I can. Maybe I should go for it. Yeah. And so, that's what I mean about, like, the negative messaging.
And then all of a sudden you have this professor. And I feel like I can think of, in college, that one professor who just really challenged me and encouraged me. And I think we all kind of have that person in our lives, or we long for that person. And so you have this professor who starts to kind of speak these things into you, and just really you start to challenge yourself. And so then this was now where the idea for the food truck comes from. So before we get really even into the story of the food truck, for those that what's the word I'm looking for?
They're missing out.
They're missing out.
They're missing out.
If you don't know what a pupusa is, okay? So I am obviously very white, but I grew up in Herndon, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. And my entire neighborhood was Latina, Black, Asian, Vietnamese. I mean, like, you name a race, and that was my neighborhood. And but there was a very, very, very high Latina population right around where I lived, and so all of my best friends were El Salvadorian. Like, I mean, it was like they were all El Salvadorian. So I mean, there was maybe a few from like Guatemala, Venezuela, but it was mostly El Salvadorian. Yeah. Well, one of my best friends was El Salvadorian, and we, I remember, I guess it was in like third grade. We were doing this group project, and we had to pick a country, and then there was like a big fair at school, and so we had to like do a presentation on this country, and we had to bring food that was authentic to this country. And so we chose El Salvador, and my friend's mom was like, I'm going to make pupusas for you. I'm going to show you how it's done. Like, that is a terrible accent. Oh my gosh, it is terrible. But you know what I'm saying. But so she's like, I'm going to make you pupusas. You guys are going to learn how to make them. We're going to do this together. And my life was changed after that. Like, it was a life-changing food introduction for me.
Yeah.
So for people that do not know what a pupusa is, which is probably one of the most delicious foods on the planet, explain to them the deliciousness of this. And is this just something that like you grew up eating? Like your mom's pupusas are just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a Salvadoran mom thing to do.
Yes.
It's like, I'm going to feed you, and you're going to learn something in the process.
Yes.
And so, yeah, pupusas are, they're the staple Salvadoran food. Like, it's what our country's known for. It's something that is very special for me. Before I had the food truck, we only used to have them on special occasions. And so
it's like a very like nostalgic and
it's like, oh, we're gonna have pupusas.
Yeah.
And so for me, growing up with pupusas have come to represent a lot of special things. I think it is nostalgic. I think that it's a way that the Salvadoran diaspora in the United States keeps that connection to home, to what is home for them, and it's a way that we keep our culture alive, our traditions alive through those culinary traditions. And so pupusa, it's a thick tortilla with the stuffing on the inside, and the skill behind it, and why I call my mom an artist and a chef, and how she prepares the food is that it's hard to get that technique down, to get the filling right. And even before the filling, to get everything that goes inside right. That's what I've been learning for the last year or two is how to do all of that from her. And there's not a recipe. She's like, this is what we do. We're going to taste it and see what it needs. And I just had no idea what I was doing for it. I didn't know how to make pupusas when I first started.
It's so funny because I remember, like, that's hilarious that you say that there's not a recipe. Because I remember that was my frustration. My friend Vilma and I were like, Vilma's like, Mom, like, we have to have a recipe card. And she's like, oh no, Vilma, there's no recipe. Like, and she's like, well, we have to have a recipe card for our project. And she's like, and her mom was just so, I remember, so frustrated because she was like, there's not a recipe for the pupusa. Like, she's like, you taste it as you go. You know? And I'm like, you can't just write that on a school project.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I think that was part of my frustration early on too. I was like, Mom, let me measure everything before you put it in. But no, she'd just be like, oh, throw something in. And I couldn't keep up. And so I was like, this is not going to work this way. And I came to realize that that's how traditions are passed on, especially in our culture, is that you have to earn it. It's not given, on a recipe card. It has to be earned through blood, sweat, and tears, and hours in the kitchen, like with the big paleta to turn all the modo and getting burnt by the beans and all that kind of stuff. It takes hours of putting the work in to earn it and to keep it alive. And I think that that's what makes it so special, is that that's what it takes. It's kind of like I think about the Karate Kid sometimes when he's like, wax on, wax off, wax on. So what am I learning here? And so I've realized that that's what it takes, and that's how it needs to be passed on and kept alive through people who will take the time to intentionally learn, not just how is it done step by step, but what is it about my mom's method that makes it my mom's, that makes it special because she has a certain taste, a certain sazon to it. And inheriting that, it takes so much work. So once you're there, once I've started to get there, it's I'm so proud. I'm proud of how far I've come. I can tell she's proud of how far I've come. Like, I know she's proud that I went to school, but she's like, ay, mi hija puede hacer pupusas. Like, I know that she's excited about that, and she's like, wow, sometimes I impress her. And just recently, like, I've been making the modo by myself, and she's like, te quedó bien. And I'm like, ya me puedo casar. It's a joke. Like, can I get married now since I know how to make pupusas? And she'd be like, yeah, they joke like that. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey learning my mother's recipes. Recipes, like, loosely loosely used recipes. But that's, I think I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't my job to do that right now. And so I'm really grateful for that experience, that time I'm spending with my mom and with my tias and with my sisters and just everyone in my family who has something to teach me about how to make my curtido. How to, an easy way to go about doing something. Yeah. And that is all special things that everyone has put in, because almost everyone, all the women in my family have a slightly different way of making their pupusa or a slightly different way they like their modo. And so I've had to be like, I can't just straight up choose one to copy. Mm-hmm. I've got to form my own.
You got to form your own. Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. I know you are loving and soaking up everything about this chat with Cecilia, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor of the show, who's able to help make the show possible, and as you know, that's Cosbox. Cosbox is one of my favorite ethical subscription boxes. I have been a subscriber for over 2.5 years. How it works is each season a new box is released filled with everything from accessories and home goods and jewelry to the best in skincare and wellness products that are not only amazing, but they are also doing the most good. The fall box spoilers were just released, and I am already so excited. I cannot wait to see what comes in this box. A tote from October Dry Purr, a gorgeous handmade scarf, and beauty products that I cannot wait to try out. I am so excited. Like the summer box, I know this fall box is going to sell out fast. So hurry on over to stillbeingmolly.com/Cosbox and use the coupon code MOLLY for $15 off and reserve that fall box. Now back to my conversation with Cecilia. What I love so much is not only that you have this, I love the way you talk about your family, and I know that is so huge. And you from the beginning, you just talked about how your family is your biggest supporter, and family is everything. And I just love the way you talk about, like, my mom's proud I went to college, but she's really proud that I learned how to make a pupusa,
Yeah.
And so you got this idea for the food truck. Mm-hmm. And what I love is that it's a taste of El Salvador with a side of social justice. Mm-hmm. And so tell me where the idea for the food truck came from. You said it kind of at first was a joke a little bit.
Yeah.
And then where did it go from there? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean, a taste of El Salvador with a side of social justice? So there's a couple questions in there. But yeah, I'd love to hear all that.
Well, the food truck, once we joked about it, but the food truck is really a means to an end. Mm-hmm. It is the way we accomplish our goal. Yeah. And our ultimate goal is to, what I really wanted to do, my kind of aha moment was at Carolina. I was like, okay, what I want to do with my time here and the resources and opportunities is to start a scholarship fund, because scholarships changed my life. Yeah, it changed my life in being able to attend Carolina, through the Morehead-Cain, be able to take a gap year, a couple other scholarships I received that helped me because I come from a low income background. And so having access and not having to have that financial worry is why I wanted to go to Carolina in the first place, because I knew I could qualify for Covenant, and that was my goal, was to graduate with little to no debt and not put a financial burden on my parents. And so since scholarship changed my life, that's how I wanted to pay it forward. And I started, with this different narrative I was hearing about myself. I stopped thinking of myself in terms of what I didn't have or what I couldn't do, or ways in which I was disadvantaged. Yeah. And because I was hearing a lot of like, well, you don't have this, so let us help you by, doing this. And there was a lot of programs like that did help me, but they also enforced that narrative. Yeah. And it wasn't until I started talking about ways in which I have privilege, and everyone has privilege, and what can you do about that to check yourself, that I started to think more about, well, I have privilege in that I was born in the United States and I'm a U.S. citizen, and I can travel and I have a passport, and I can apply to FAFSA, and I'm eligible for a merit-based scholarship like the Morehead-Cain. And so I started challenging again, like, I'm like, oh, I'm so lucky to be here. And I was like, yes, I'm lucky to be here, but now I have a responsibility. And so that's what I wanted to do. That's how I wanted to make my time at Carolina really meaningful, is figuring out how to start a scholarship fund for undocumented students who are part of my family, part of my school, part of my friend pool. Like undocumented people they're just part of our society. They're part of my community. Amen. And so it wasn't fair to me, as much as I was fearful applying to college and applying for scholarships, and it was my full-time job while I was in high school. There are students who are just as smart, if not smarter, just as deserving, who have no problem getting into college, getting that acceptance into school, but don't go just because they can't afford it. Because they're undocumented students in North Carolina are not eligible for in-state tuition. They're not eligible for a lot of state funding, a lot of federal funding, so they have to fund their educations either personally or privately. And that's really challenging. If you're undocumented, if your parents are undocumented, maybe you're not undocumented, but your parents are undocumented, even that mixed family status can create a lot of barriers for a student who has done everything right. Everything they told, like, make sure you get good grades, volunteer, do community service, like all of these things, and take the AP classes, take the SAT. They've done everything they were supposed to do, and then they get to the part where it's about, financial aid, and they're stuck with no options. And that is such an injustice, and I think a real gap in education equity that is what I wanted to focus on. It's like I worked hard and I was able to get here, but not everyone has that same path. Not everyone who works hard gets there. And why is that? And so that's how I wanted to check my own privileges and wanted to start the scholarship fund. I didn't have any money to give anybody. And so I was like, well, businesses make money. And so business can do whatever they want with their money. And so this joke about the food truck and things like that, I was like, we could sell pupusas and give scholarships. And I was like, in my mind, it was that easy. It was that simple. I was like, let's do it. And then along the way, it's been years of a journey to get to where we are today, to where we're in our third year of the scholarship, and we're giving out $5,000 this year.
That's incredible. And
hoping to give out more. Our next year we'll have 2 more scholarship recipients, and our first scholar will be entering her senior year next year.
Yay!
That's so incredible.
Awesome. That's incredible,
Cecilia. To see. And so yeah, definitely the food truck is a means to an end, but it's also its own force in its own right. And I wasn't expecting that. I think that I was like, I'm going to sell pupusas, I'm going to give scholarships, but I was really doing 2 things. And so we have a for-profit food truck and catering company. We have the nonprofit, which manages the scholarship fund, and we keep those separate, for legitimacy purposes, and also because it's a new example of how business can be a force for good.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, Cecilia. One, I want to I basically want to cry right now. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 25.
I want to be you when I grow up. The more I sit here and the more I look at you and the more I listen to you, I'm like, I want to be you when I grow up. And here I am, 8 years older than you. I truly am you have done more in your 25 years of life than most people do in a lifetime. And I legitimately am like choking up right now. Because you are the type of person that I think embodies so much of what we throw this term around all the time, like the American dream of just but you have not only taken that, you're like, well, I've fulfilled quote unquote the American dream. And now I want to use my position of privilege to help somebody else who is fighting for that same dream. And maybe just because of where they were born, or just because of where their parents were born, or just because of their status here, there is some type of disadvantage that they are at, and I want to help them, and I want to lift them up and empower them. And if we all did what you are doing to take our own positions of privilege and use that to lift up and empower other people, not give a handout, but a hand up, and really come alongside people and help them, think of where we would be. Yeah. I mean, think of where we would be as a community, as a society. And one of the reasons, and I have so many listeners here of the show who are not local to Durham. And if you come to visit, you're clearly going to have to look up So Good Pupusas and come find where the truck is. But, one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show, even for people who are listening, because I actually have surprisingly a lot of listeners in Africa and Australia and stuff like that, and who will never come here. But I want to show these examples of people who are taking their gifts, taking their passions, and using it, like you said, using business as a force for good. Because so often there can be this negative connotation with business, like, oh, business is bad, business is greedy. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. You have to overly complicate it. You don't need to run some large Fortune 500 company and donate millions of dollars a year.
You should.
You should.
But it doesn't
have to be that. It can be something as simple as your mother makes really freaking good pupusas and you start a food truck and you give scholarships to kids in your community. It doesn't, like, how simple is that it's obviously a lot of work, but I'm saying, like, the concept of it and just like you just do it. Yeah. And so many people, the other thing that I think really impresses me about you is so many people talk and they're like, I really want to do this and I really want to impact my community and I really want to do this and I really want to do that. And they never actually do it. People are all talk and they are zero action. And you are not only talk, but you are so much action by the age of 25. And how incredible is that? And so I just want to say, I think you're incredible. I want to be you when I grow up, and I could talk to you all day about this stuff because I think so much of what you share is also just important conversations that we need to be having. And, you know, I try to stay away from too much political talk, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, these are people's lives. And I don't think that that's a political thing. I think it's just a human rights thing. And so I think the fact that, you know, just the way you talk about that undocumented people are a part of our community. They're a part of fabric of our society and have been from the time our country was founded. What's the shirt that Cindy has that I'm like, I need that shirt? And it's like, no one's
illegal on stolen land.
No one's illegal on stolen land. I remember Cindy walked into the gym one day and I was like, I need that shirt. Where's that shirt from? Yeah. But really, I think it's incredible. And I think that you are the type of person that I want inspiring others. And also, too, the other thing I should say, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, it's just like, you are part of the millennial generation. And so often the millennial, quote unquote, generation gets this bad rap of being lazy and entitled and yet, like, as a whole. And here you are, like, and so many other millennials that I talk to who are working their rear ends off to make their communities a better place. And I just think it's incredible. So kudos to you, and I cannot wait to continue to see how many more students you impact and how many lives you impact and how many more delicious pupusas you make. So you started the food truck. You said you're now in your third year. And so what did that, I have to go back a little bit when you were like, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
What did that look like at first, like getting the food truck, and like how did you go about learning? Because I would not know even the first thing of how to start a food truck.
Well, yeah. What's really wild about my story is that I had no idea what I was doing at the beginning, and I think it's something that I think you need to have as an entrepreneur. I didn't know I was being an entrepreneur. I didn't know I was doing entrepreneurship at the beginning. I was just like, I'm just out here trying to do something. And I worked on a food truck a little bit before. I worked on Cousin's Main Lobster truck when they first started in Durham.
Oh, that's awesome.
I learned so much from them just about how point of sales work, what's the process like inside the truck. And the Morehead was super supportive when I was like, I'm trying to get this started. I did a summer of independent research where I traveled to different parts of the U.S. Like I went to Los Angeles, parts of Texas and D.C., where the most Salvadorans are. Like that's where like the largest groups of our diaspora are, to see what they're doing and how they're making pupusas, how they're serving them. Yeah. And so I did a lot of research, and then I spent one summer just focused on launching my venture. I think I was the first student part of the Morehead-Cain to launch that kind of summer. And I just love that they were like, okay, you're gonna do this, we haven't had a student do this before, let's go for it. And I was like, great, I don't know what's gonna happen, let's do it. And so there was a lot of that and just looking for the food truck. When I bought my first food truck is still sitting in my parents' driveway. It's not in operation. But I bought it. I found it like right down the street from my parents' house after just searching. And the first time I drive it, I'm driving it on the way to the mechanic, and it breaks down.
Oh.
And I couldn't be happier. Like, I was in the truck. It was like midsummer. It was July something. I was sweating. I was smiling, and I just couldn't believe I had a truck.
Yeah.
And so,
did you get like a grant or some type of business loan to get started out?
A lot of family support at first, but we also grew very slowly because the type of business I wanted to start and what I wanted to do with it wasn't always the most attractive thing for people who wanted to invest and give grants to, because when you give a grant or you invest, we weren't promising any return on investment because our shareholders were ultimately the scholarship recipients,
right?
And also, you know, for someone to be like, yeah, we gave a grant to this business, and when you brag about them, and not everyone wants to hear that they're giving scholarships to undocumented students. And so that was a tough go at first. It was thinking about, how do I want to go about this? Should I be more strategic? You know, should I say immigrant students or just students and not undocumented students? But I really followed their lead, the undocumented community's lead, and how they set the tone about being unapologetic about who they are and being unafraid. So I was like, okay, well, we've got to be unapologetic and you know, about it as well. So no, we're not going to sugarcoat anything about what we do. Yeah. It's for undocumented students, and if you're not on board with that, then maybe you're not our investor, you're not our customer.
Yeah.
So starting the food truck was a huge challenge. Like I told you, I didn't know how to make pupusas when I first started. Yeah. My family was like, what's going on? It kind of creeped up on them, and my mom was like, I'm not going to do this with you. I'm not trying to make pupusas all day, every day. And I don't know. I think it's like when you talked about the American dream earlier, that really resonates with me, because I think that my parents came here with a dream. Like the undocumented community talks about so much about how our parents were the original dreamers. Yeah. And it was because of their dream of coming here that they were like, well, we want you to get an education. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what it's going to mean. We're not even sure how much we can help you, but we're going to bring you here because the chances are better. And so I'm here, you know, I went to Carolina. I got the Morehead-Cain. I took a gap year. Like all these things that my parents were like, the school has sent her, during my gap year, they were like, the school has sent her somewhere in the world, and we're not sure where she is, but we hear the weather's nice. And like we always talked about the weather, what time it was. And they were always supportive, even though they weren't sure what I was up to. Yeah. Sometimes I'd be like, I'm in Italy on a farm, or I'm in France, and they're like, that's crazy. But they're the original dreamers. And I think that I have the privilege of making the American dream, taking it a step further, in that they're like, okay, you went to college, but what job does that get you now? And I'm like, I'm gonna start a food truck and sell pupusas. Yeah. And they're like, okay. It
was like not what they had originally had planned. Expected. They're like, you're not gonna be a doctor, lawyer.
Yeah, like they're like, what job does global studies get you? And I'm like, food truck. Yeah. So that's been something that everyone's adjusted to, and they're like, this is what you're doing in the meantime while you figure out what you're gonna do next. And I'm like, no, this is my next thing. And because I felt that too on my gap year. They're like, so you're taking a year off, why? And a gap year is really a year on, and that's really so many things about my gap year that prepared me to be an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur. And so they were all on board, though, because the idea of giving back, of like you said, giving a hand up, I saw that in action before it came to mind. Like I saw it in my parents and what they were doing. Like we always had someone who was either like just staying with us for a few weeks, or someone who, you know, my dad was helping find a job. So I realized when I was doing it, I was like, I'm doing something that I've already seen done, and I'm just doing it in a different way. Yeah. Because my parents, having immigrated and having been able to apply for asylum and then eventually residency and citizenship, they had a journey that worked, you know, and it doesn't work for everyone. Yeah. Not everyone who comes and tries and applies gets it. Yeah. And so that we're very fortunate in that sense. And so I saw them say, all right, well, we're this far and we need to do something with that. So who can we help? Yeah. And so I'm doing something that I watched my parents do already. Yeah. So starting the food truck was not was not what anyone expected, but everyone was like, we understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it matters. It matters that you're helping the students. You know, you were able to go to school. That's all important. And so it's a family affair. Yeah. Really.
Oh, it's incredible. Mm-hmm. And so here you are now 3 years in, and you're impacting so many people, and you are feeding Durham in a delicious way. Yes. So if you're local to Durham and you want to find the food truck, how do you do that?
Yes, we're working on our social media presence, but we usually post where we're going to be selling publicly. But I'm really excited about our 2 main locations you can find us. On Thursdays, we are at the Latino Community Credit Union. Our nonprofit Pupusas for Education banks there, so I think it's important to bank in the community. And they've been a great partner in giving us a Thursday slot there. So we're there every Thursday for lunch and dinner, from 10 to 2 and then 5 to 8.
Awesome.
And so every Thursday we're coming up on a year of being there every Thursday, and it's been one of our, Pupusa Thursday, hashtag Pupusa Thursday is a thing. And we're working on making Pupusa Tuesday also a thing. Yeah. But eventually it's just going to be hashtag Pupusas every day.
Pupusas all day, every day.
Every day, yeah. So I'm excited about that Thursday slot. You can come see us there. And then on Tuesdays, we're in our second week of being at Coco Cinnamon.
Awesome.
Their Lakewood location. It's right by El Centro Hispano and County Fair.
Yeah.
We're there for lunch and dinner, same hours, 10 to 2, 5 to 8. So we're in our second week of doing that. So we hope to be there every Tuesday as well. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can catch us there. The rest of the week, we're out and about, sometimes catering, sometimes at events and rodeos. And so that's what we've got going on.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Cecilia, before we go, this is my favorite part of the show, that I get to just ask you some fun get-to-know-you questions. Okay. And as my listeners always know, this is the part of the show where my husband inserts some type of sound effect to transition us to the get to know you portion. Who knows what he will choose? It'll probably be some movie quote with maybe a reference to pupusas. I don't know. Do you have a favorite song or type of music that maybe you would like for us to transition?
Oh, there's the perfect song that comes to mind is this cumbia song called A mí me gustan las pupusas.
Okay. Me gusta las pupusas?
Me gustan las pupusas, yeah.
All right. John, you heard that. Okay, me gusta las pupusas.
We're gonna. Goes, a mí me gustan las pupusas. and then there's a part of the song that's like, no son tamales. Like, it's not this, it's pupusas. Okay, so if it's not pupusas, I don't want it.
All right. So, John Stillman, that's your request.
No son pasteles, son tamales. No son tamales, son garrobos. No son garrobos.
Okay, so first question is, what is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure? I don't know. Hot Cheetos.
Hot Cheetos, yeah, so good.
Hot Cheetos, guilty pleasure because I have them almost every day, and I shouldn't. I really shouldn't.
They're so delicious.
But they're so good, and I think it's also my family. We're really big on Hot Cheetos, and so we have a special way that we prepare a pupusa on the truck. It's almost like our secret menu, like Starbucks. That you can get
secret menu item, guys. Yeah, pro tips.
That it's not all the time that we have it, but on special occasions we'll have. You can get your pupusa prima style, prima style is cousins. So it's an ode to my cousins. It's just Hot Cheetos on top.
I love it.
Like however you like your pupusa with Hot Cheetos on top.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What is the first career you dreamed of having as a kid?
My first career, I really wanted to be in OBGYN.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was really into women's health when I was young because of my sister. And so I was like, ooh, I want to help deliver babies. I want to make sure moms are okay. And we're a heavily female family, and so childbirth is like everyone is on board. Like we're all having this child. Like this child is all of ours. So
Cindy posted a Instagram story from a baby shower this past weekend, and I was like, I'm not even gonna lie, that is nicer than I think my wedding was. Like bigger and nicer than my wedding was. She was like, ain't no shower like a Latina shower, baby shower.
There were pupusas at that shower. My tia was making pupusas at that baby shower. Yep.
Yeah, you're like, we are all having this baby. I love it. Okay, my next question is, what is your go-to song at a karaoke night?
Ooh, go-to song. Let's see. Lately, it's been Refill.
Oh.
You know what song I'm talking about?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, because it's not actually about drinking. It's about being like you know those feelings when you see somebody you like for the first time. And
yes.
Kind of, and I just like the way she sings it, and it's got like I don't know what in the background, like maybe like a fiddle or just some cool instrument in the background, and I'm like, yeah, I really get into it, and I can't really hit the high notes, but I go for it anyway.
Yeah, always
that kind of song. So Refill is a lot of fun.
It's all about like the confidence.
Yeah,
when it comes to karaoke,
you can be the worst, but everyone wants to see a really confident bad singer
for sure.
It's very entertaining,
and everyone's like, that was amazing.
More.
That was incredible. I need more. I need more. All right. And my last question is, for what are you most grateful for today?
Oh, today, what am I most grateful for? I mean, I can keep it simple and just thank God for another day.
Yes. Amen.
Another day. And I mean, another opportunity to get up in the morning and do something meaningful with my day. Being here, first great way to start my day, being here.
Oh, I love
Talking about my story, getting other people to hear my story. And I mean, then I go to work and I sell pupusas. I mean, I'm just thankful that that's what I get to do every day.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Cecilia, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been such a pleasure, and I know you're going to inspire so many people. And for the listeners, as always, I will have Cecilia's information along with So Good Pupusas information in the show notes. So if you're local to the Raleigh-Durham area, you can hit up So Good Pupusas. If you come to visit, you can hit up So Good Pupusas. And if there is somebody who is just really interested in supporting what you're doing, they are not local, but they just think what you are doing is incredible. You do have the nonprofit angle, which you can make a donation to Pupusas for it's Pupusas for education. So you can make a donation to Pupusas for education. I have no hat in the ring here, so I'm just going to go ahead and say you should give your money to Pupusas for education because like I said, what you're doing is incredible. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Cecilia.
Thank you. And please, if you have any questions or just want to talk, we have Facebook and Twitter for So Good Pupusas. Pupusas for Education is on Facebook, and I'm also on Facebook. People can follow me. And one of my fun Instagram name is Pupusa_mommy. And I was like, I'm my own boss. Let me change my name. Because it used to be like Cecilia Polanco. Everything was formal, professional. And I was like, I'm not going to get fired from my job for having a funny name. So let me take a page out of Drake's playbook and have a fun Instagram name. So it's Pupusa_mommy. And you can follow me. I don't post much, but we can chat, I guess.
I love it. I love it. Cecilia, you're awesome. I want to be you and a girl. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, now do you see why I want to be Cecilia when I grow up? She's absolutely incredible. If you're in the Raleigh, Durham, or Central North Carolina area, go check out So Good Pupusas food truck. I went there for lunch last week, and they were the best pupusas I have ever had. I am actually thinking about probably going there for lunch today. And I just love the mission and heart behind this business. Now, if you're not local, you can absolutely donate to the nonprofit partner Pupusas for Education if you want to support their mission. All the details will be in the show notes as usual. Another huge thank you to this week's podcast sponsor, CauseBox. Visit stillbeingmolly.com/CauseBox and use the coupon code MOLLY for $15 off. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome. And if you are a regular listener, thank you so much for your support week in and week out. Be sure to share the show with a friend this week. You can use the hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast and tag me at stillbeingmolly on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, whichever social network you like best. Sharing the show with a friend really, really, really does help me so much, and I appreciate it so much. Also, if you have not left a review of the show on iTunes, I would also really appreciate that. It just helps me to know how the show is personally impacting you. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.